It's been a really long time since I've done one of these videos. I think the last time I did one of these videos, I had 11 more inches of hair. So this is really fun. It's been a crazy almost year, and I realized yesterday in a yoga class that it's been about 11 years since I've started doing yoga. And I started thinking about how it's changed me because a decade is a really long time to do something. And I originally started it because, we do a lot of strenuous things for violin, and I always heard it was good to stretch it out. So I tried it. I didn't really fall in love with it until it really started helping me with stress, and it was a good way to just kind of, focus on one thing enough that it makes everything else melt away. So I really love it for so many aspects, and it wasn't super consistent, but in the last few years, it's become really important to me to try and practice, 3 to 5 times a week. Even if I have 10 minutes, I know that if I just get on my mat, it'll really help my body and my mind. So I was thinking about how it's affected me, and I definitely cycle through different sutras and different poses that will mean something really valuable to me in the moment. But I think the one thing that I really learned, and the one thing that I kind of live by as a person and as a musician, is one of the most basic poses. I'm not even sure I ever really thought about it as a pose until last summer. So it's Anjali Mudra, which is prayer hands. Like, you don't even need to go to class or learn anything about yoga to do that. We do that pretty often. And as a performer, I was doing that way sooner. I wasn't, maybe doing the prayer hands, but I was bowing. So it's interesting to think about that because I had a conception as a performer of what that meant, and yoga has really changed how I think of bowing. Um, so Anjali means offering, and that's already really beautiful. And usually at the end of class, you do that and you say Namaste, which is the divine being in me recognizes the divine being in you. Something like that. It's a little different wherever you go, but it's a really beautiful thing, and I always say it, I always know it. But it wasn't until a teacher adjusted me in a class last year when it really started to change my life. Which it sounds so dramatic, but it really changed my thinking about everything, which I think is the power of the body and the mind connecting, which is what yoga is meant to yoke. So it was after the class, and we were all doing this, and we were going to say namaste after we had just taken a little nap, and then we were going to go home. But then she actually came over and adjusted me, and she told me that the correct way to bow, not correct, that sounds really intense. There's not really correct. But the proper form is not just to bring your hands to your body, but to also raise your sternum and to press your sternum into the thumb, which is something I love so much about anything that I pursue seriously. Because you're technically doing the same thing when you press your thumb to your sternum or your sternum to the thumb. Like, it might look like the same thing, but it's a totally different universe in terms of a movement and a mindset. And so the moment I pressed my sternum into my hands and then bowed, it was a crazy revelation to me because I had to keep my back straight in order to keep pressing. And so I still lowered myself, but it was such a different bow because I kept my strength, I kept my spine, and that's really affected how I play music. Any kind of chamber music, any orchestra section you're in, it's important for your voice to be heard, even if it is not the most important one. You have to keep your spine, and so that's really affected the way that I play. And every interaction I have too. I have a lot of anxiety, so even though my life is filled with like the nicest, most beautiful, wonderful people, I have a really hard time saying no. I have a really hard time telling people I'm uncomfortable with things. So even with my closest friends and with my family, it's really difficult for me to be totally open sometimes when I'm not happy or something like that. And in most of those instances, I will just do what is kind of like bowing with my spine rounded, which is I'll serve them, I'll do what it is they want or need or something like that. And it won't be like a really unhappy thing, but it won't have been me asserting myself. And so in every interaction, I've been thinking more and more about having a spine, meeting the hands with the sternum, and it's really changed how my interactions are with people. And I think it's really important, and I'm excited to think about this concept more. The fact that it means offering, and you can't offer unless you are yourself a whole person and you are present. And it's really moving because that means you choose to bow. You aren't made to bow. You don't bow to fear or discomfort, but you choose to. You accept it, and it's a really beautiful, powerful, empowering thing. Now for me, when I do something for someone, when I agree, there's backbone. So, yeah, it's really beautiful, especially before performances, to just think about like having a little ritual of like, I'm going to be present and my part is important, my person is important, my needs, my desires are important, even as they serve your purpose. So, yeah, um, if you try that before performances or anything like that, have fun with it. I hope it's been a good year for you guys.